Schedule. The first reading of the renewal of the Santa Barbara Charter School.
Well, this would be a renewal of the charter and the MOUs, both the general MOU and facilities MOU for for the years 2008 through 2013. And with us tonight, we have a number of people from Paul Minnie's office. We have Sarah Coleman, who has helped us on a number of charter issues over the years. We work primarily with Paul Minnie and, of course, the charter school on these revisions. But Sarah can speak to the revisions and some of the reasons for them. But we also have Dave Wiseman, and we have Bev Abrams. And Bev, if you'll come up to the podium, please. Bev can highlight the changes. As you'll see, there are not very many changes. Well, Bev, I'll let you tell the board about them.
Hi, I'd just like to thank all of you. We've really enjoyed, this is our 16th year. We've really enjoyed being a part of this district. We've had a really collaborative relationship, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve children. The charter was not very much changed this round. The three main changes were we added meat to the bones to assure standards-based accountability, and that was most of the textual change. The second was we reviewed the charter to make sure that it was consistent with the changes in the laws that have taken place in the last 5 years. And finally, the biggest change was in actually our memo of understanding, because we are no longer our own, we were never formally our own LEA for delivering special ed services, but we are now under the umbrella of the Special Education Department for Santa Barbara School Districts. And already we're appreciating the support that the department has given us. So those are the three major changes. Sarah would do a better job of answering the technicalities of the legal things. I can talk to anything educational, and Dave is operational.
I thought Sarah was going to say something. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. If you would like to.
I just had a couple of very quick questions, I think, and it had to do with two of the areas that were added. One had to do with daily engagement and how that's documented, and the other one had to do with potential civil liability effects. And I don't, very simply, I just wondered if these are sort of boilerplate additions that you made, or if these were made because of some issue that had come up.
Well, the daily engagement is just that's the CDE has had some changes over the course of the past 5 years with how you actually document and then claim ADA for independent study. So that language is very much in keeping and reflective of what the CDE has indicated is supposed to be in, for example, a charter, how a charter school is actually supposed to claim ADA. And the civil liability, again, is as the district fully takes the charter school under its umbrella as a school of the district for special ed, that is reflective of how the processes work. If there is an issue with special education, how the liability issues work. So I guess you could say it's boilerplate language, but not really, because it reflects accurately the new relationship between the district and the charter school.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question could you tell me whom you represent, who's paying your bills?
I represent the charter school, Santa Barbara Charter School. Well, actually, I'll let Brian answer that.
So you're here as counsel for the district?
She's our charter attorney. Yes.
Okay, you're not counsel for the charter school? Okay. So you're advising us?
I guess, yes.
No, because,
Yeah.
it's very important.
Yeah.
We've had cases where counsel has, it's been ambivalent. And people have come out of it saying, gosh, whose attorney was that? Thank you.
I can advise you, yes.
Good.
I've got more questions, and some will be for you, Ms. Abrams. If you want to come on up, I'll ask you first. And maybe some are for both of you. I guess one of my big question is that Santa Barbara Charter, it's actually two charter schools, a K-5 and a 6-8. And nowhere in this document does it address that this is two schools that I can find. And
It
It's in the original charter as opposed to the MOU.
Yes, but this is also a renewal of the charter, and so I would have thought
I
that,
believe it was divided out to describe, we talked about this at the beginning, I'm quite, at the very beginning, it explains that it will behave as one school, but we have two separate charters, one for K through
and
5.
I just didn't see that. Do you know where that
thought
was?
we had
It's
that.
on the first,
Was it on the first page?
it's on page 4, I guess it would be your red line where it says page 4 of 59,
Page 458?
4 of 59.
Okay, there
That
it is.
first paragraph under introduction.
Okay, and I hadn't seen that
Summarizes
before.
that.
All right, thank you. And then my other question is about the curriculum, where it says language arts, a whole language approach is used. Do charter schools, are you required to use your funding to buy state board
No,
approved?
we get a block grant.
You
and
get a
then-
block grant and you're not required to use the state approved
Correct.
curriculum. Okay, that was my other question on that. Then my more technical question is about the funding. And this is about the fact that so many of the students that attend Santa Barbara Charter are from neighboring, particularly one neighboring district that's a basic aid district. And when I was looking at that issue, I was surprised to see in the Ed Code that the Ed Code says that the superintendent of public instruction may not apportion any funds for the attendance of pupils described in this subdivision. You know, it's about basically if you have students that are coming from a basic aid district, then the basic aid district must pay towards the block grant. They must pay essentially the equivalent of a revenue limit for the charter from their property tax pool. There seems to be the Ed Code seems to be pretty clear on it, but there seems to be some ambivalence about whether or not that's being practiced. So I guess that's my first question.
Do you want me to answer it? and then
Yes.
go? Okay. Well, actually, part of the problem is that the Ed Code is messed up on this particular issue. That the way the Ed Code was drafted was actually incorrect, and the way the code, it's 47635. The way it's written, it says the first part of it says the non-sponsoring basic aid district will pay the sponsoring district money for those students. However, the next sentence says the sponsoring basic aid district. And because the legislation was incorrectly drafted, the CDE currently does not enforce that provision of the education code. So until the legislature goes back and says, basically does cleanup and fixes it, the CDE will not enforce that provision. And they tried to do it, I think, a year or two ago, and the bill was killed for other unrelated reasons. So right now, that doesn't.
I can see that would need some clarity, because usually what it refers to when you're talking about a sponsoring LEA, it's not necessarily the one that chartered it. And I think that's the way the legislators were thinking of it. It means the one that the student comes from. And so
Right.
I'm sure that's where the confusion was.
Right.
But then when it goes, whether or not you say it must happen, because my concern was, are we breaking the law by actually giving the funding to the charter school in this way? It certainly does make it clear that charter schools may request from basic aid districts.
Absolutely.
And it surprises me that the state hasn't followed up on this, because it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt Santa Barbara Elementary at all, except for that it slows us down in terms of going to becoming basic aid ourselves. But it does hurt the state, and it does, as a consequence, hurt all taxpayers to the state, because we're essentially subsidizing students coming from basic aid districts that could well afford to pay their charter school apportionment. So I don't know if this board is interested in it, but I would certainly be interested in language in the MOU that starts to transition, if we're able to, instead of making it something really hard, because I think it would be very hard if we did something suddenly, if it turned out we were breaking the law and we had to do something quickly. But I would be interested in the MOU when it talks about the district shall annually transfer to the charter school funding in lieu of property taxes, where we address the issue of transitioning to where basic aid districts are paying, over the course of this, over maybe 5 years or so, you get to the point where they're paying for their own students.
Do you mean as we become a basic aid district?
No, because
Or you
basic
mean
aid-
now,
I
that we
mean-
make that request to the basic aid district
Well, once you're a
now?
basic aid district, then everything is out the window because there is nothing in Ed Code about basic aid districts,
Yes.
working with basic aid districts and charters. I mean, now where you're working, you set up an MOU with your charter schools so that essentially, you could say that in the next year, they will pay, they will seek 20% of their funding from the students that are from basic aid districts directly from those basic aid districts. And then the next year, it could be 40%. Build it on like that, so that it's not a hard transition.
And that the charter school would seek that funding from the
Yeah. I
district
just
of
have,
residence?
I'm just wondering why, since the Department of Education isn't enforcing that part of the Ed Code, what would be the incentive of the basic aid district to comply with that MOU? Since our MOU,
What the department is not enforcing is mandating that we can't pay.
is that correct? Is that the part that they're not enforcing? I thought they were not enforcing the requirement that the basic aid district reimburse.
That's correct. It's actually that, yeah.
Well, then that would be worth more investigation, because what I got the impression was that it says here that what I thought that they weren't enforcing was that they are not allowed, the state is not allowed to pay revenue limit any funds for the attendance of pupils described in this subdivision who reside in and are otherwise eligible to attend school in a basic aid school district unless the pupil is subject to the exception set forth, which they're not in our particular location. I thought that that the part that they are allowing to go forward would be the part where charter schools may make the request from basic aid districts. It's sort of two separate sections, because you can't throw out that entire Ed Code, otherwise.
Well, I understand making the request, but what's their incentive to comply?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the request. It's
Uh-huh.
the problem is if the basic aid district went to the CDE and said, do we actually have to do this? The CDE would say,
Hands off right
hands
now?
off. Yeah.
Well, okay, then I think.
Talk to your legislator to get it fixed. Is
Okay.
what they'd say.
Well,
I had asked, since I had read some of the same language and was initially confused by it, I had asked Paul Minnie about that, and I'd asked him for a legal clarification. We haven't received that. If we want to receive something, we can sure send the request back home with Sarah Coleman.
Well, I would definitely like
ask
us to
for-
receive something, and I also think that it would be worthwhile then, as a board, possibly asking our legislature, or legislative representatives to fix that.
And it's actually, our timing was
Could-
poor, but it's been faxed to you this afternoon, probably at about 3 o'clock.
Oh,
which
so it's
you wouldn't-
here.
And emailed, so you would have not received since
I
obviously you were
see.
here, but I
Well,
apologize for that time glitch.
Since we probably have an added request, could you give us a revision?
Yes.
Good, thank
Yeah.
you. Because we would like some legal advice on that. How would we proceed? If we thought there was any hope of succeeding in being able to do that, which of course we'd love to do, and I've already talked to Kathy Boomer, for example, and got a shrug of the shoulders, as I would expect.
And I did have one other question on the page 1 of 24 of the MOU. It says, in the middle of the number 3, it says, as per the terms of the amended and renewed Santa Barbara Charter approved by the District Board of Education on March 2nd, 2004, the charter school is becoming a nonprofit public benefit corporation.
Yes.
And I'm just confused about the timing of this, if that happened in March of 2004 or if it's something more recent.
Good.
Hi. At our last charter renewal, it was Paul Minnie that suggested that we seek our own independent nonprofit status. Beforehand, we'd always been a member of a nonprofit umbrella group, and we were just one member. And the way we had it fixed with the IRS was that our fundraising committee was a project of Community School, Inc., which was the nonprofit organization. In pursuing our own independent nonprofit status as a public benefit corporation, we have gone ahead and processed that incorporation through the state of California. Then you send in the tax exemption application to the federal government, and typically we've been told to expect anywhere from a 6 to 8 month review period by the federal government. That's the period we're in right now. And so we have a kind of a vague category where we're still members of the Community School, Inc., to retain our tax exempt purpose and our tax exempt status, but we're waiting for our own independent exemption as a nonprofit public benefit corporation, and that's where we stand right now.
Thanks, Dave.
I have a couple questions. The calendar, I couldn't find it in here. Is that something that is the same or different from ours?
Our calendar is different. There's a timeline in the, I can't remember if it's the charter or the MOU. I think it's in the MOU, a timeline by which we have to submit it to the district. For example, this year, we have a 2-week break in winter and 2-week break in spring. We will stay in school a week later than the district does. We try and parallel it because we do have children, well, we are K through 8, but we do have students in the high school district. We try and get as close as we can for the convenience of the parents.
Okay. My other question is about Prop 39, and I guess it's similar to this other question, is we have all these students that are there that are from a different district. How many students do we have from our own district? And does that meet the criteria?
Dave can give you more specific numbers, but we don't meet the requirements because so many of our students will never meet the requirements because of the way we're divided K through 5 and 6 through 8. And so we don't ask for Prop 39 provisions.
Oh. Okay. Even though it says in here about it, okay.
Dave, do you want to speak to that more specifically?
Say that?
As best I can determine, a lot of the language was left over from the Peabody model that we used to renew this charter as well. My best understanding of this is that we quite simply are not using the Prop 39 mechanism right now. We do not pay a pro rata share. It's described as a pro rata share, but we've always thought of it as rent. And so we can use that different terminology, but I don't think that the rent that we pay right now is actually based on our fair share of the facility's costs. And in fact, I think that the rent that we pay is more than that. However, there are other provisions of Prop 39 which really just don't work for us with the dual district, with the breakdown of our program being K through 5 and 6 through 8, whereas the district norm would be K through 6. That means that in our middle school, where we are within the boundary of the Santa Barbara Secondary District, we don't even have 80 kids. So it makes it very, very complicated and convoluted to try to use the Prop 39 mechanism. And finally, Prop 39, in our estimation, was designed to ensure that public school facilities were being used for public school children. And we already had that circumstance long before Prop 39 was envisioned. So in that sense, we thought, well, this arrangement has worked. We continue to think that it's the right arrangement for us in this circumstance, and so we just haven't used the Prop 39 mechanism.
Can we just delete that sentence then?
Yes, I believe that's a mistake in here. We'll have to take that out.
But should they ever reach that threshold in any given year, it affords the possibility for them to invoke Prop 39.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
But
true.
that would always be
Frankly,
true.
That's true.
I don't mind leaving
Just leaving it in?
You know, in fact, this
Yeah, that's
gets a
true.
little more convoluted. When the school initially chartered, they wanted to be one school. And they were advised, no, you need an elementary charter and a secondary charter. So they have a K-5 charter and a 6-8 charter. Well, they really operate as one school. And when they came back for renewal this last time, we agreed with them that they should be chartered as a single school. We advised them to do that. They went back to the state, and the state said, well, we don't really have the expertise here. And they got left with two separate charters. There are some advantages with two separate charters, but that's what we're left with at this point. If it was one charter, they might be closer to that number.
Right. And given that, we also went back and forth with the finances as well, where we were trying to submit everything as a single school, and then, at the district's pleasure, we broke it back out into separate schools. And so we're now doing it that way, and frankly, we didn't want to flip back again. So that was another feature that
Which is frankly the same reason that we stayed as two separate districts under joint resolution rather than becoming a unified district because of finances.
So then hopefully you can relate.
Yes.
We actually
can relate
also
to that.
asked directly, we asked Paul Mini directly.
Yes.
Before Sarah began working with us about that particular issue, and he said to leave it in.
The, the guidelines here are, it's different, I mean, there are different procedures than our board policies. And our board policies are much longer and, more involved. So I guess this is sort of a boilerplate, sort of a condensed version of our board policies.
And I think that's really, it's not only a condensed version. Really, charter schools tried to do away with regulation and exchange it for accountability. And the whole goal was to have less of that. And our first charter was about 5 pages. And our second charter
So
was
much for
20 pages. And we're now up to 59 pages because that hasn't flown forever. But there is a certain degree of ability to make decisions and move quickly because we're not burdened by a tremendous amount of paper.
As we go to the 5,000 series in a little bit, yeah.
We do have one public comment on this, but I also had one other thing that I wanted to say, speaking of sort of bureaucracy, I guess, and that's the Brown Act component of this. And I'm wondering if it would be possible to build into the language just some sort of periodic Brown Act training that you expect your board to have. I mean, you probably already do it, but
No.
just, if it's every 2 years or something like that.
We do it
yeah.
with every new board, which
Yeah.
is every year. But
Yeah,
that's not a
so
hard thing
if
to
you're
do.
doing it, it would be great to have it in there because there have been some issues with that at other schools. So that would be great. And, Sarter.
Just one quick question on Exhibit A, it's page 22 of 24 of the MOU. The administrative charges have decreased from 4% to 1.5%. And I don't know if anybody can explain the rationale behind that.
I'm sorry, where
On
was that?
page 22 of 24 of the MOU, Exhibit A, the administrative charges that the district charges Santa Barbara Charter School have dropped from 4% in 07-08 to 1.5% in 08-09. And I'm just wondering what the rationale is.
Was not 4%.
The only answer I can give you is that I don't know that it ever went to 4%. My understanding is that charter school law prescribes that in a renter-landlord situation such as the one that we are in, there's a cap on the percentage that the district can charge the charter school for administrative oversight. And I believe that where we are right now is in compliance with that cap. And I don't think we've ever strayed from that, as far as I know.
We've never paid 4%.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this should be rewritten a little bit here before corrected. Anything else?
That's the right
No?
answer.
Thank you. We're going to listen to public comment. Thank you for being part of our district and coming here tonight.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yes.
I want to make sure that our newly revised legal opinion reflects what you're asking. So the way it reads now, it basically is an examination of whether that particular education provision is being enforced by the CDE. It sounds like what you would like is just a more detailed analysis of whether the Santa Barbara City School District could ask, for example,
Right.
Goleta to contribute
Because what it says now is that it's, illegal for us, that the state can't give that money over to the charter in this way. And so then there's the other layer of, can we just make the request in that?
Okay.
So.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, no, we're all good.
And for public comment, we have Kate Smith.
The Santa Barbara Charter School, again, you've seen the school of our dreams. It is student-centered, teacher-directed, parent-involved. All from my candidate statement. I have vowed to move this district into a new school paradigm where we have the schools our children need and deserve so that they can grow up to be healthy, happy, successful students in the 21st century. 16 years ago, I was asked by a San Francisco group of parents, because I'm a professional grant writer, to write a grant for a charter school. I'm an arts administrator. And I told them, oh, looking over this grant, you have to write it yourself, because you're not only going to get the money, but you've got to run your school. So I called up 3 individuals, educators in our community, and Wendy Cantor already knew about the charter, and a group of us got together, and they rejected my statement, which was, we, the families of Santa Barbara, in order to create a democratic school, and going on from there, ending up with, to secure the blessings of peace, happiness, and a love of lifelong learning, do hereby charter the Santa Barbara Charter School. I want to talk a little bit about the governance structure that's written up here, because it's essential that every school and every district have something like this. I'm running for the board because you're a bunch of lay people sitting on nothing, whereas this group has written out their curriculum, their teaching methodologies, and their assessment tools, and they're straight from educational philosophy, and they rest upon that. They have a circle of trustees, which are the parents, teachers, and professionals to run the school. So there are a few lawyers and a few accountants on the board. And they make sure that the teachers' council, because this is a teacher-directed school, they make sure that the
30
teachers...
seconds.
Well, you know, you can give me a little extra time, because explaining this to not only you, I'm sorry you don't understand this, but I'm explaining it to the world. So I want you to know that they rest upon their articulated educational philosophy and their charter that they go to you every 5 years to renew. They have to maintain, like a constitution, they have to maintain their
Thank you.
educational
Time's
integrity.
up, Mrs. Smith.
And
And I think we're moving on to F1.
Yep, thank you very much.
nice
And
talking at you.
We will, we will see you again, I guess, with the second reading. So we're on to F1.
Did you have more to say?
Oh,
Anyone else?
oh, wait,
Hold it.
wait. We have more words. We thought we were waiting till after you were done. Didn't know we were all done.
I just, I had a couple of questions for Dr. Sarvis. We're up, this is for renewal of the charter, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
First reading.
Yeah, renewal of the charter, according to the Ed Code, requires certain criteria to have been met, and they are performance criteria. And yet I don't find any performance data to accompany this.
We have checked, they have met that performance criteria. We have checked, they have met that criteria.
Well, so we don't
That
get to look at the
criterion,
data?
Excuse me. Well,
Wouldn't,
I'll
don't you
get
think
it
it'd
to
be
you.
useful to let the public and the board see the data that you've based your decision on?
I'll get it to you.
I mean, there's a lot of judgment involved in whether one meets those criteria. This is not, they are,
Yeah, I think
like most
they-
criteria,
I
there's
think they
fuzziness around the edges.
Met it in 4 out of the 5 categories or something like that. I forget. I'll get it to you.
I'm sorry to have to pull teeth, Dr. Sarvis, to get information, but I feel it's important information to have.
Was there any more? Oh,
No,
okay,
I'm finished.
okay, then we're
Thank you.
now done. Okay, we're on to F1. This is about the youth outreach workers to support the gang intervention and prevention.
Well, this is a follow-up to the plan the board approved to hire outreach workers to stem gang violence. And we'll have Michael Gonzalez, our Director of Student Services and Compliance, make the presentation.
Thank you. The gist of this presentation has to do with the attachment called the Youth Outreach Worker. I share with you, at your direction, the district has begun negotiations with the CSEA to modify the job description as you requested. Those negotiations are still ongoing. The youth, at the request of the CSEA, they have requested several changes. One of them was the addition of youth to the title. They are requesting that we title this position Youth Outreach Worker. Under assignment, if you take a look at it, they are also suggesting a language that very clearly indicates that these positions are contingent upon funding. You may recall that the board, in giving approval for this program, they said that we will take a look at this position in June and make a determination, has it been an effective strategy to combat youth violence in our schools, in our community. There's some changes that were under example of duties. If you take a look at the first sentence in there, you're going to see that the CSA requested that the following 3 words be added: using independent judgment. As you know, these positions will require, though they'll be under the direction of the superintendent, there'll be oftentimes, especially after hours, work in the community where these folks will have to make very independent, sound judgments regarding safety and the appropriate measures to take with at-risk youth. Under employment standards, they also requested that we add a line called, or that includes college coursework preferred. You may recall that originally this position called for a college graduate. We moved away from that direction. CSEA is saying that college work is preferred. They also added a line under education and experience that very clearly indicates that travel and mileage reimbursement for driving of the personal cars should be compensated. That's the gist of the additions that CSEA has requested in this position. And I'm told that later this month they'll have a ratification vote on this job description. Any questions you might have?
Any questions? Ms. Cordero?
Well, yes, I just had a couple. There were 2 areas under definition that I wondered if there had been any, how we came up with this language. And the one part that says coordinates with community agencies to address the needs of gang-involved youth and their families. And I was wondering, because that seems somewhat narrow in terms of what I was thinking of the outreach worker, and especially since we changed the name of it to youth outreach worker rather than gang intervention specialist. Because it seems to me that part of their function is to coordinate with community agencies to address the needs of many at-risk students and their families, but not just those who are already involved in gangs. So I guess I'm asking you, is that appropriate, or was there a reason why why making it specifically gang involved would be a better approach?
I would refer you to the sentence that follows that, and I hope that is more encompassing and addresses the concern you've brought up. The next sentence states that the primary function is intervention with gang-related juvenile problems and to refer at-risk youth to appropriate school-related activities, programs, or community agencies as alternative to becoming involved in criminal activity. And so I hope that sentence very clearly states that, yes, this is about gang-involved youngsters and their families, but also at-risk youth.
Well, actually, it was because of that second sentence that I thought the previous one could also be broader like that. And I also have a concern about that second sentence, which is where it says to refer at-risk youth to appropriate school-related activities, et cetera. I was wondering if there was any way we could make that a little bit more active, a little bit more, what do I want to say, result-oriented, rather than just referring them to somebody else, which to me sounds like just sort of passing them off to another agency. If we could say something like to involve at-risk youth in appropriate school-related activities, or something that focuses a little bit more on this person making it happen, not just referring them to it. Engage, any verb that suggests that they're not going to just send them there. They're not going to just tell them go there. They're going to actually make sure that it happens.
We can certainly add that language, of course, and we'll make sure that CSA is very clear about the intent and spirit of your comments.
Okay, thank you.
8-hour days, 12 months a year. What do they do during summer?
As Dr. Noel, as you know, this past summer, these case managers were involved in providing direct services as well as referral services for the 82 students that were identified for the pilot project that this youth outreach worker is based on. I will share with you right now that at board direction, we will study and evaluate this program in June and make a determination if we proceed year-round. That was the wish of the board, that this program terminates in June, subject to a full evaluation that will determine should we proceed with this model or not.
Well, then I'm a little confused. I mean, if the program terminates in June, why do we have 8 hours a day, 12 hours a year?
Well, it is 8 hours a day. The original intent was to make it a year-round position, but again, the board's directors were very clear, and what the superintendent offered to the board was very clear. This position will terminate in June, subject to an evaluation that indicates.
And I think the job description should be aligned with that board decision.
We can make sure that that language is modified to reflect
Thank you.
that.
We have a number of job descriptions that we don't have people in place for, or we don't have funding for. And we can state that, in fact, I would like to add simply that for this position, that funding is limited to the end of June in some other place.
Well, I thought we've already made that a board decision. That's in the,
But this is a job description, so I don't know if we need it in the job description itself. It already says these positions are contingent upon
the whole,
funding.
the enabling action by the board, set that as a parameter.
So,
Is
Can we leave
it possible, though, I mean, with the possibility that the program could continue, that after evaluation in June, I mean, can you include language that after, appropriate evaluation of job responsibilities, that they could be modified based on
I suppose
the
we could do
review
that.
that's
I
done in
mean,
June?
We could make this just the temporary job description
That makes more
from
sense.
now
Okay.
until the end of June.
Makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to start making promises in a job description.
Anything else? Then let's listen to public comment. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
we have 4 speakers, Kate Smith, followed by Paul Contreras, followed by Jacqueline Inda.
I'll speak more on this at the October 28th meeting because I'll be having a presentation time. But I am a grant writer, as I mentioned, and the first thing you have to do is define your terms. I mean, think Voltaire here. You have to define your terms. So let's do that. What is a gang? You haven't said anything. What is a gang? Okay, let's do it. Shake your head when you agree. It's a group, right? Right? Is that what we're talking about? A group of males. They're aggressive. I'm not getting much response here. They dress alike, right? Same cloth, same form, so it's a uniform, right? Are we talking? Yeah? Well, they have insignia, yeah? They're kind of physical, brute force, not known for higher education, yeah? Are we getting to common terms here, defining terms? They're kind of cocky, attitude, quick to react, and weapons. They carry weapons. Is this a gang? Is this what you're talking about? Because I know what you're talking about now. And they congregate in specific places, right? Donut shops. What have you got against police? Do you understand? You are asking for funds for hundreds of millions of dollars for the gang task force because just like the truancy program, which started here and it went around the country, within 1 year, started here. Well, it's going to end here because you have a billion-dollar school, political, industrial complex, and you have not defined your terms, so I just did. This is a bunch of policemen that are coming in to grab our kids for the school to prison pipeline. But that's fine. You're approving the job assignment. So I used to be a stand-up comedian. And I'm sending this out to Monica Lewinsky and the Mustang Ranch because it says, here's your assignment, Monica. 2 positions. Any positions you want. Flat on your back, legs up, all 4s.
30 seconds.
Good, because I don't need much more time. 8 hours a day. It's a salaried position. You can do this, Monica, 8 hours a day, 1 day a week, 1 day a month, or 30 days. You decide, Monica. It is also for 12 months a year. And get this, Mustang Ranchers, the positions are
Time's up.
contingent on funding. That's what you're approving. That's the assignment.
Followed by Brenda Lopez.
Excuse me, Miss Parker, I will not, I'm sorry, Miss, I will not let you speak again if you're going to speak like that. I cannot do that at my meeting. That's unacceptable.
Good evening. I'm a member and a voice for Esperanza, and I'm just here tonight to hope to encourage you to include the voice of the community in your proceeding and intentions on the program that is set before you. I know that not enough of the community has been involved, and we would like to include that in the plan so that the community has a voice, and so that when things continue to come about, it'll be effective, and change, real change will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline Inda, followed by Brenda Lopez.
I'm going to add to the comment that Paul just made. I'm also here on behalf of Esperanza. It's a local movement of parents and youth addressing gang violence in Santa Barbara. And one of the things that I'd like to mention is the fact that you guys are creating a job position, and you've talked about creating a committee, but you haven't actually talked about who's on that and how you're creating a committee to supervise this kind of program and already have a job or something in place is sort of doesn't quite match. What we would like to do is see community be a part of that committee so that we can help make this program successful. And we know that there are wonderful ideas. The summer program worked really well, and I have an understanding from case managers that the reason why it worked so well is because the kids were supported all the time. But it's very hard for me to believe that 2 case managers could actually help in that very big thing that we want to do of bringing back our kids and helping them be successful without actually really being able to talk about statistics and how that's actually going to work. So I think we need to keep everything that we do in a real format. And the reason why the summer program was so successful is because they had the support all the time. So if we're looking at this as a strategic point and how we're going to address that, we need to make sure that it's actually going to be effective. And the only way that you're actually going to get reality is by having the community be a part of that committee. So that's...
Thank you. Brenda Lopez.
Hi, I'm also a voice for Esperanza, and I'm just here to say that it's really sad to see that the board is not attempting to connect with parents and youth in this issue. Yet we have a job description with no community input, and it's really, really sad just to read and see that I could be doing this. I could be outreaching. I could be outreaching for my son. I could be outreaching for those programs, you know, as long as you give us, as parents, the chance to do that, you know. But we haven't been involved in this. You know, we haven't been asked. So your committee needs to involve parents and those who you served. So how about, you know, there was a program here which most of our parents don't know about. I hope those outreaches do that, you know, for them, for those programs, because we don't know anything about those. That would be something nice to talk about, and not, you know, saying that they want travel and mileage reimbursement, and, you know, it's really sad. I think that you guys should get that community be involved in all this hiring. Thank you.
I would just like to attach a timeline to this, because all we're approving tonight potentially is a job description. And then the job description needs to be approved by the Classified School Employees Association, correct?
Correct.
And then when would hiring, I mean, when would that take place? Then when would hiring take place? Then when would the formation of the committee take place? I guess that's what I'm...
As soon as this is approved, we'd go out to advertise. We're probably a good 2 months away from having anyone on board.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
presumably the committee would be formed sometime before the person is
Yes.
hired.
Yeah.
Because then
Yes.
there would be training discussions involved and that sort of thing.
In fact, my-
And we would be talking to involving community members in that discussion.
If it's going to be a participatory committee, I would think it might even take part in the screening process for the appointment of the positions.
Yes.
I just wanted to make the timeline clear, because there will be a large, significant lapse of time between the approval of this, potential approval of this, and activity.
And without, it should be mentioned that this is just a first step, perhaps, toward other steps. Okay. Anything
May I
else?
ask, with those revisions that you've requested, are you authorizing, are you approving this job description with the revisions that you've requested?
Well, I was just about to make a motion.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the job description with the revisions that we have alluded to, that it's a temporary job description, that it terminates in June unless the board decides to extend it. And I don't remember was there another one?
There was the language.
It was
the
your
description.
language.
More active
Oh,
verb.
the language that I asked for, sorry. So that's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 5-0.
Okay, now separately from that motion, I would like us to, if we can, maybe to take some direction or give more formal direction on the establishment of the committee. Because I agree that the committee should be in place before this person is hired, and functioning to the point that it could probably participate in the screening and hiring.
We intend to go ahead with that.
Okay.
Yes.
So will we get then a description of how we plan to go forward with the committee?
I can give you a written description.
That would be great, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
F2, approval of application for fundraising for tennis court resurfacing at Santa Barbara High School.
And Dave Hetjunk, our Director of Facilities and Operations, will make this presentation.
Dr. Sarvis, members of the boards, the tennis coach from Santa Barbara High School was here earlier, but unfortunately had to leave. There's a tennis match tomorrow, and he's had a long day already. However, this coach has met with myself and Carl Mayrose and Dave Winiger, our two project managers, with Carl Mayrose because he administers most projects for the secondary district, but with Dave Winiger because he's the one that actually wrote the specification that the district uses for tennis court resurfacing. These courts were resurfaced a few years ago with donations of a contractor due to some excessive wear, issues with ash and dust and dirt from construction on site. The coach and the parents have initiated a fundraising. They'd like to resurface those courts, and I believe they want to paint them with the U.S. Open blue, just as the city of Santa Barbara recently did with the municipal court. The one in the main stadium, anyway, is blue. The rest of them are still green. And so they'd like permission from you to fundraise. They think they have $12,000 in the bank right now from previous efforts, just from fundraising activities already approved by the board for the tennis program. They like to take those funds plus raise additional funds for the specific purpose of resurfacing the tennis courts. But before they go out and say, we want to fundraise for this particular purpose, I advise them that they did need board approval. And so Mr. Jeremiah has filled out the fundraising application. The site administration has signed it, and they're requesting permission to go forward and solicit the balance of funds needed to raise the money for resurfacing. As always, once they have a 75%, we would go ahead and advertise for bid, and we would not award the contract until all of the money was turned over to the district in the bank, so to speak, with the business office.
Ms. Cordero.
Well, I have one comment and then I want to make a motion. Well, maybe two comments. One is, no, just one. Somewhat facetious, but not entirely facetious, which is why are they painting them green or gold?
I know where you're coming from, because when Dos Pueblos was resurfacing their track, they specifically did not want the typical red that's done because it was San Marcos colors and the San Marcos track. And we talked to Steve Jeremiah about this. Are you sure you want blue, which is a color of another school, rather than green? And I guess it's because the U.S. Open plays on a blue court. They'd like to emulate the U.S. Open.
Right, but since it's on on a school campus, I think it probably should be the decision of more than just.
The administration signed off on this.
Okay. Then I will move to
However,
approve.
if the board would like to specify as otherwise, I'll be glad to, we're a long way
I would
from-
like
from-
to ask them to consider green or gold.
I will sure have a conversation with Dr. Caprito and Dave Meister.
Thank you. And I will move to approve.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Dr. Noel.
Do we give them a copy of that policy about the 75% when we make deals with these people?
I have discussed that. I don't know if I specifically gave them a copy of the policy. I've discussed it with them.
Include that, but I think that policy ought to be attached to any documentation related to this.
They know that that we have to have 100% of the money before we'll award the contract. Yeah. We can attach that.
Sure, I'll accept that. Let's just make that a rule for all the schools.
And I accept that too.
Okay. I had a motion, is it second? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of variable term waiver for a deaf and hard of hearing teacher.
Dr. Robertson, our Director of Personnel, will make this presentation.
Good evening. One of the credentialing options offered by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing is called a variable term waiver. These types of credentials cover such shortage areas such as math, science, and even special education. This waiver is used when the CTC cannot issue any other type of credential for somebody who is qualified. It's a requirement of the CTC that certain credentials be approved as action items by the board in order for them to move forward and issue a credential. We currently have Tara Kelly, a highly qualified deaf and hard of hearing teacher who came to us from New York, and she's excellent. She's wonderful. We need to have the variable term waiver so she can continue working in our school system until she applies for and receives her California credential. So it is recommended that the board approve as an action item the variable term waiver for our employee Tara Kelly.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Despite the fact that it says it's time certain here, but F4, notice of a public hearing and approval of resolution 080911 regarding Williams' sufficiency of instruction materials for the Santa Barbara High School District. I open the public hearing. Is that what happens?
Let me preface my comments by pointing out to the board a error that I've discovered on the agenda and then ask for the superintendent's direction. I address your attention to item F4 on the agenda. It's listed as Notice of Public Hearing and Approval of Resolution 08/0911 regarding Williams' sufficiency of instructional materials for the Santa Barbara High School District. Below that, you'll find resource person, my name, but below that, the recommendation. That recommendation is in error. It does not reflect the cover memo addressing the issue to the board. The recommendation as stated on this agenda states it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 08/09-11 regarding insufficiency of instructional materials. And so before I even present, I just need a direction. Can we proceed?
Is the title itself correct?
The title itself is correct.
Well, if the title is correct, the recommendation is there just to give the board some indication of what we as staff are recommending. And you're telling the board that is not the recommendation, that in fact the recommendation is different.
Correct. Thank you. With that then, very quickly, there are two sections of there's a section of the California Education Code and a section of the California Code of Regulations that requires on an annual basis that we survey all of our secondary schools and make the following determination, that we have in grades 7 and 8 provided every single student in our district with State Board of Education approved textbooks in the core instructional areas, and in the high school we're required to verify that the primary textbooks or instructional materials that are used in the core areas, core subject areas, meet 2 criteria: that they are standards aligned and that they have been approved by the board of the Santa Barbara High School District. A review of all of the textbooks that are currently in use in the core instructional areas at the junior highs and the high schools verifies that we have provided every single student in the junior highs and high schools with either materials, instructional materials, primary instructional materials that were approved, that are approved by the State Board of Education, or have been reviewed to make sure their standards align and approved by the Santa Barbara Board of Education. And so and the data is attached to the resolution, to the cover sheet, and we are at this time recommending that we approve the resolution of sufficiency for the Santa Barbara High School District.
Move to approve resolution number 08/09-11, resolution regarding sufficiency of instructional materials
For the high school district.
for the high school district.
Second.
And we do have public comment on this. Kate Smith.
Ms. Smith, I will again warn you, please, to keep your language. This is a family show.
Oh, well, I think I'm going to speak to that comment. Since you made that comment, I may do so. You don't have to agree with what I say, but you have to. By sitting in that chair, wielding that gavel, you have to know that you have to defend my right to say it. So when you said, you're not going to let me speak because you don't like what I'm saying, that's a violation of the Brown Act and a violation of California Department of Education code and a
Madam
violation
Chair, can we
of the
request that the
university.
speaker address the agenda item?
Well,
Please
no, she talked to me, so I'm allowed to talk back, right?
I'm sorry,
Speak
members
to
of
the-
the public have to speak to the agenda item.
You're speaking to a previous agenda item.
No, I was speaking to the comment that. Okay. Well, I just want to let you know that when my daughter was at Santa Barbara, she was in a class and it was 90 degrees. And it was so hot that when I came in to teach the class, the kids were sweating. It was sweltering, and an aide fell asleep. And I want you to know.
What does this have to do with the textbooks?
Because we're talking about the resolution for the Williams, which has to do, if you look at the front of the thing, about a whole thing of sufficiency. It was the largest lawsuit brought against a school district, and it swept across the nation because it turned out that there was a lot of insufficiency.
You're correct that it covers facilities, but in this instance, we're covering textbooks. So
Oh,
speak to textbooks,
Okay.
please.
Well, I'll speak to the fact that I then realized that the teacher did not have my daughter's IEP, which is her individual education plan. She did not have it. And so I called an IEP and she confirmed that. So that there are lots of insufficiencies here in this district. And you've heard about teachers. There weren't teachers and aides there. But just because you go around and make sure that there are some books there in certain classes, you really haven't understood that there are serious Williams complaints here, is what I'm saying. Very, very, very serious. And you pass this little resolution saying everything is hunky-dory,
30
and you're
seconds.
going to find out that it is not. Will you stop doing this? It's lunacy. To have Michael go around and do these reports where it says, oh, they've got all the books they need, and there are systematic and systemic violations of laws and principles and values. This is non-compos mentis. Let's get a grip. That's what I'm saying. Okay? Can we be real?
Can we call the question?
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. We're on to F4. F5, excuse me.
Thank you. Just for purposes of clarification, this requirement that we're presenting you tonight refers specifically and only to instructional materials. Board Member Harder is correct that the Williams legislation is much more expansive and broader than instructional materials, but what the law requires in these resolutions is verification that there is sufficient instructional materials approved, again, by the State Board of Education or at the high school level by our Board of Education for all students in the district. This item, the next item, refers to a recommendation to the board to pass a resolution of insufficiency for the elementary district. I draw your attention to the cover memo labeled F5, and you will find under the resolution, which is the best way to understand it, that at Adams School, unfortunately, we found insufficiency of materials in history, social studies, and science in the 2nd grade. We found at Harding in the 5th grade insufficient materials in science. We found at the Open Alternative School insufficient materials in history and social studies in 6th grade. I am happy to report to you that those materials are on order, that the students are not being denied access to those instructional materials. Copies have been run off. In several instances, it was a question of over-enrollment. They had more students at a particular grade level than they anticipated. In other instances, for example, the science textbooks, there was a hurricane that struck the southeastern coast that delayed the shipment of materials. Again, I want to state to you that copies have been run off of the appropriate textbooks. Students have not been denied the instructional materials, but the law is very clear. Since the textbooks are not available, I am required to report to you a resolution of insufficiency of materials for the elementary district.
Move to approve resolution 08/09-12, resolution regarding insufficiency of instructional materials in the elementary district.
Second.
And we do have public comment on this item. Kate Smith.
Well, notice of public hearing and approval of resolution regarding Williams' insufficiency. Funny thing, I must have been psychic. I didn't realize when I was up here the last time that that wasn't this item, because the truth is, of course there's insufficiency, but it's more than insufficiency. Gee, 2 people are talking, and 2 of the seats are vacated. I don't know why I bother, but I'm going to keep talking to myself anyway. That's okay, I'm not proud. I want to talk about the fact that Harding School, which was mentioned as having insufficient materials, is a struggling school. We know this. And yet you're considering bringing in the International Baccalaureate Program, which is a college prep program. Is that right? It's college prep. And you tell the Hispanic parents, let us bring in this college prep program, and your kids are going to go to college. Well, I want you to know, according to educational philosophy and child development, that this, again, is a Williams complaint. Because the Williams talks about appropriate materials, not just sufficient materials, but appropriate. And Harding is an elementary school, which means fundamental skills like 1, 2, 3 and ABC. It has to do with child development. So if you are thinking of bringing in a college prep program, which is actually reserved for the secondary schools, the whole nature of that, a baccalaureate, is reserved for higher education. I want you to consider that you might not be on the right path. I'm trying to get that across to you, that there's a whole education department in this government. There is a whole educational philosophy, 3,000 years, that's very rich. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you would just learn from that information.
30 seconds.
We would sure appreciate it, because what you're doing now is not working. And by smirking at me, President Malakoff, by being angry that I am a critic, I am sorry. I am outraged, as are many other parents. I am suffering, as are many other parents, because we're talking about our children.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Actually, it wasn't.
Call the question?
It wasn't disagreement, it was more, yeah, okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes 4-0 with one absent. He's just out of the room, so we'll just call him absent, I guess. We have a problem with
We're pulling item
F6.
F6. It needs to be agendized differently, so we're pulling that item. We will move the next two items, G1, G2, to the next meeting.
And so we now return to the consent agenda. And we're at D1 is first, which is the minutes. And it's in part because some people were absent during different meetings that we need to do these separately.
I'll move to approve the minutes of Friday, June 27th, 2008.
There is one little itty bitty correction I noticed just in the first, in B1, where it says the motion passed 4-1. It was actually 4-0-1.
Yeah, since I was
So just a
absent.
little bit of clarification there. Would you be
I'll
willing
accept
to
that correction.
accept it as a minute second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I abstained because I was absent.
Move to approve the minutes of Tuesday, July 8th, 2008.
And I have a few corrections on that one.
I'll second, and you can name the corrections.
Did you want to pull this, or did you want to make a change here? We weren't sure what to do.
We can pull it and bring it back if you'd like.
Actually, I'd rather pull this.
Probably need to check the.
We
Okay,
need
I'll
to check the
withdraw.
tape for this
I will
one.
withdraw the motion.
Withdraw the second.
Okay, so now we're on to the meeting of August 12th.
Move to, go ahead.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So it's 4-0 with myself abstaining. Malakoff
Move to
abstains.
approve the minutes of Tuesday, August 26th.
I'll
All-
second. Well, no.
No,
I
you
should- I
can't
shouldn't.
second. You cannot second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you had
I
a
seconded
cor-
it, but I had one minor
Cor-
correction,
please-
and that
please
is
tell us.
that under C8, under public comment, H. Edward Heron is spelled incorrectly, so if we could remove an R.
With that small correction, is
Yes.
that okay?
And
Yes.
I accept that amendment too.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passes 4 with 1 abstention. Ms. Harder, is that correct? Yes. Is that what it is? Is it abstention?
401.
Abstention, not a absent. Okay, are we done with, nope, do we have
Nope,
one more?
move to approve the joint meeting of, the minutes from the joint meeting of Board of Education, Santa Barbara City Council, Friday, September 12th.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 5-0. Our next one is D4.
Cool. I'm a little puzzled by the first item. This purpose of travel to the NCLB Title III Year 4 Forum. What does Year 4 Forum mean?
3. Oh,
You-
4.
It's,
Sorry.
we're in our 4th year of program improvement, if you will, for Title III
Who's the we?
and the elementary district.
The district as a whole?
Yes,
Okay.
elementary district. We are similar to our program improvement under Title I, but we're frozen in year 3 under Title I. In Title III, we move forward. And so we need to go to a team needs to go to this forum. It's required. Dr. White went to a pre-forum conference at the county office and received the information, and we're taking our president, Lane Wheeler from SPTA, and other members of a full team from the district to write to write our plan, our improvement plan, and we'll be bringing that back to you.
So, and this is the team?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. White is also included in that.
And it's EIA LEP money, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Which is appropriate for title. Okay, thank you very much.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. The next one is D4. Oh, we did that, D5, sorry.
And D5, we have public comment on. Kate Smith.
This is the acceptance of the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaints, and it's just one two-sided piece of paper, and it's got categories, and it's just 00000000. Dr. Noel, are you leaving because you don't want to listen to me anymore? I guess so. And who else is gone? Kate Parker is gone. Well, I'll keep on keeping on. I want you to know that the cover letter says that we have to use the uniform complaints. And I'm wondering about that because I thought listed in the board policy and procedures there was a Williams complaint form. Isn't that true? Isn't there a Williams complaint form? Michael, hello? Hello? Anybody out there? I thought there was a Williams complaint form. That's what's listed. Anyway, I came in to get a complaint form, and I was given one after 25 minutes. I was told by Esther, the director of compliance, Michael Gonzalez's secretary, that there were no written procedures for complaints. So I'm complaining about that. So I then asked Esperanza in the front desk to try and find it on the web.
We're on
and
the topic of the William.
yeah,
I see.
we're talking about uniform complaints. I'm trying to tell you that you have a uniform complaint. It's very good. Then you have another uniform complaint. There's 1312.1, and then I was given 1312.5. But none of those are the ones that were approved, and none of those are the ones I was given. So there's a problem here. I can imagine why you didn't get any complaints. Nobody knows what to complain about. I'd like to complain about that at San Marcos. My daughter is in a classroom, and there are 8 little 8-inch by 5-inch blocks from sewing machines that are in her classroom, and I trip over them every time I go in because they're just in the way. So I guess I'll fill out a Williams, but I wonder, you know, here it says nothing, there were no complaints, and you just approved a long list of Williams complaints that you found. So are you really expecting that there's any kind of honest reporting or accountability? Are you trying to tell me that? Because if so, again, I've got to say, here's a problem. There are real problems, and you're just passing paper around and making it look like everything's hunky-dory. But it's not.
30 seconds.
hunky-dory. Well, thank you very much. Nice talking at you.
Move to
Dean-
approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0 with one absent. D9.
D8.
Oh my gosh, did I miss that one? Oh, you're right. D8.
I pulled D8 because we we have public comment on D8. Kate Smith.
Comment. Mrs. Smith is exercising her right, and I have a great respect for the procedures and the underlying laws that grant her that right. At the same time, I have enormous admiration for the other candidates for school board who are not using that opportunity to get before the camera in an election time. And I commend them on their restraint.
Thank you, and I can speak to that because I have been called to this podium. I have the floor, and you made a remark, and so I get a little time to speak to that. And I have already said, Dr. Noel,
You may only speak to the agenda item right now.
no,
If the
well, wait a
president
minute.
will please reinforce
I
the
was
rule.
called to the podium. He made a comment after I took the floor, so I should get some time.
Don't you want to talk to the?
Yeah, I'll talk to the D8
No, to
because
the-
I am your SELPA, Santa Barbara School District parent rep to the CAC. Dr. Noel, do you know what that is? Can you tell anybody, because, you know, Mr. Heron asked me what the SELPA was. What does it stand for? Ms. Cordero, you're asleep. Can you tell anybody what the SELPA stands for? What the CAC is? Do you know what this is? You've been losing due process proceedings. This is an IBIPR. This is $28,000 of our funds. And Dr. Sarvis, didn't you go to a superintendent's meeting where you heard where there was a total change in the funding of special ed? Isn't that where you found out why all of a sudden we are approving IBIPers here? You're just staring at me. I'm trying to figure this out. I am your SELPA, Santa Barbara School District parent rep to the CAC. You have been losing due processes. How much did the lawyer cost? Can anybody tell me? I am the expert in this room. There are 2 contracts for IBIPers. Right. This, you don't know what I'm saying. This, Anissa, this is a non-public, non-sectarian contract for an IBIPR, isn't it?
I have to.
This is a contract.
Board member says that this is nothing to do with what this is about. You're welcome to talk
Anissa, is this a non-public,
I guess we have to recess.
No, she has to answer.